Because in the end, we're all just ordinary people. No one truly has a perfect life, a perfect family, where no one ever argues or disagrees. We all face challenges. We have a budget of $100, so make it so that everyone in the city hears about us. Well, hypothetically. In marketing anyway, in marketing advertising, yeah, I've been doing this for over 10 years now.
Basically, it turns out that this is an attempt to live in spite of death. This is also a kind of... Perhaps it's also an indicator of striving for the ideal.
So when should we fully enjoy the fact that we have this opportunity and we want to do it? There has to be balance in everything. Do it, but just don't broadcast it so very much. The former, past ideals were completely destroyed in a single pivotal day when it became abundantly clear that none of it truly made any sense at all, and we then built new, profound meanings for ourselves. You are a steadfast support, someone upon whom others can truly rely. And from that, these inner wings begin to grow.
Hello, I'm Nikolai Sistsky, and this is Archetype of the Nation, a cultural project that explores the foundations of Ukrainian national identity. Who we were, who we have become, who we should and can be. We seek the answer in folklore, as well as in conversations with outstanding representatives of our nation. Today, our guest is Valeria Abdal, co-founder of the Children of Heroes Charity Foundation. Hello, Valeria.
Greetings.
Each issue of our project is dedicated to one of the values characteristic of the Ukrainian nation, one of the elements of our identity. And with you, we would like to talk about such a defining value as idealism or the pursuit of the ideal. Usually, when preparing our episodes, we explore how a particular value is represented in our folklore, and regarding our Ukrainian idealism, we have formed the following opinion. The pursuit of the ideal is a profound trait of Ukrainian spirituality, which manifests itself in high moral standards for oneself and others, in the belief in the existence of a just social order, and in the need to seek truth within oneself, in relationships with others, and in the structure of the world. An ideal, which in culture serves as a guiding point, can in life turn into an unattainable standard. Excessive idealization leads to inflated expectations, which become a source of pain, conflict, and tragedy. Valeria, how do you personally understand what idealism actually is?
Well, that's pretty much how I imagined it myself. The only thing is, for me, the word idealism is probably almost synonymous with perfectionism. But perfectionism, I really believe, doesn't always help us in our daily life. Because I myself am a perfectionist, and I know people for whom, on the contrary, it sometimes holds them back. It causes a lot of procrastination because you want everything to be great, for everything to be like absolutely perfect. But that just doesn't happen. Sometimes, perfection is the biggest enemy of good, right? So it's better to do something well, but actually do it. And it's precisely this very idealism that we sometimes truly strive for that often gets in our way. And sometimes we simply can't finish things, or we're just not satisfied with them at all. It seems to us that we need to be satisfied with the process.
By the way, since you just mentioned that you are indeed a perfectionist, let's truly begin our conversation with something quite personal and engaging. And the first question will be about your childhood. What ideas about correctness or about the perfection that prevailed in your family? Do you remember? And what exactly was considered the standard back then, the ultimate model of perfection?
I'm truly trying to remember, but I think the prevailing model of perfection was mostly about outward appearances. You absolutely had to be neatly dressed and well presented. At the very least, I always looked up to my mom in this regard, as she devoted time to it. But by saying this, I don't mean that parents didn't delve deeper into the inner world, the soul, and so on. It's just that if we're talking about ideals, about how everything was supposed to look, then yes, that's it. It was always about outward neatness and impeccable order in the home. That's probably what I have inherited because I am such a truly big fan of absolute cleanliness, and I absolutely truly hate mess, especially within my very own home. So I think that was exactly the perfect example I had from my childhood, and to this very day, it's still an incredibly important rule for me that absolutely has to be followed without exception.
The reason I asked is because there's this typical Ukrainian saying and worldview, what will people say? Was that important for you?
Yes, to a certain extent, of course, because my mother still grew up in the Soviet Union, and that narrative was always present there. What will people say? I can't say it was constantly repeated, but that phrase was always in the air. Modesty is truly the sister of talent, so don't stand out too much, because what will people say and what will people think? Now, these narratives and deeply ingrained values are slowly changing a bit, and I genuinely like that.
And as you grew up, did you also consistently focus on what other people would say? Or did you truly start to listen more intently to your own inner voice and intuition?
I think that is still very much present even today, indeed. It's impossible to root it out completely so that it doesn't exist at all. Somewhere in your mind, you still think about what people will say, especially during wartime, especially during a full-scale invasion. And for example, speaking about myself, sometimes I try not to post something on social media so as not to offend anyone, because at that moment I'm thinking about what people will say, what they'll think, so that it doesn't hurt them. I've just changed my perspective on this a little now, this way of thinking. It's not about what people will say about me or that they'll think I'm not perfect or somehow bad, but rather so as not to hurt them, their inner state. Let's put it that way. Maybe later on I'll elaborate further on this particular thought, especially when we discuss my important work at the Foundation.
It's probably empathy, first and foremost. Caring about other people, first and
foremost. So it's still about being aware of what others might think, what they might say, and how it could affect them, but in a slightly different way than it was in childhood. I actually think it's natural for people to think this way. We all really want to be liked by others. We want to be just a little bit better indeed. I came here, I still dressed up somehow, I washed my hair, I did care, it wasn't all the same to me how I looked. Maybe it's somewhere, what will people think? Or how will they judge me? Or perhaps it's simply because I grew up in this particular way, with this ingrained habit of always looking neat and well presented, so it's quite possible that's precisely where it truly originates from. It is genuinely rather challenging to definitively say right now.
Here, it's not just about appearances, but about the results of our actions in general. When you do something, you think about the result, about what people will say. And accordingly, then, procrastination can start. It's better not to do it because people might say it's bad, and then you end up doing nothing. Or, on the contrary, you think about what people will say, and you feel you have to do everything in a way that will please them. And there are different scenarios.
It's definitely present. It's still 100% in my life. Now, as you bring up this idea, I'm starting to realize that it's still there, somewhere deep down. Of course it is.
And in recent years, you've been interacting quite a lot with children as a dedicated co-founder of the Foundation, and probably in general with people of various different age groups. Do you personally notice this significant presence, the pervasive presence of this particular narrative, or perhaps a noticeable difference in perception between the generations? So do young people nowadays think about what others will say? Just like the older generation used to think and still does.
Oh no, I think they're different now. They're more focused on themselves these days. And honestly, to some extent, I actually like that. They don't constantly have that narrative running in their heads, what will people say, like we used to. That's precisely why they're more open. They're much braver. I just remember myself, and now in our foundation, we also have people of very different ages working together, which is truly wonderful. people in their 20s, 40s, 50s. And these young 20-year-olds, I'm truly and genuinely impressed by them. They're so incredibly brave. They're not at all afraid to express their well-considered opinions, even during our frequent Zoom meetings. We have a significant number of Zoom meetings because our dedicated team is widely spread out across many different cities. So we consistently meet remotely. So, they're so remarkably bold. They can confidently voice their opinions and even firmly stand their ground on certain important decisions. When I was 20, I truly wasn't like that at all. I used to always think, oh no, I'm not smart enough, not experienced enough, not this enough, not that enough. And in general, what will people think of me if I say something now? Like some phrase that's in my head. So I think that young people today are different, but I actually like what they're like. What are they like?
If we try to briefly summarize this important idea a little bit about what people will actually say, whether it truly has a positive or a negative meaning, and precisely how it significantly influences their actions. If we're talking about today's youth, you said they're certainly less focused on this particular aspect, less fixated on it. They truly think about themselves first and foremost, but does the complete absence of this thought, what will other people say, not significantly lower the bar or the moral standard for them?
Maybe some kind of standard, perhaps?
Perhaps their own personal moral standard or not. For example, regarding violations of social norms, does this somehow not correlate with that?
No, of course it does correlate, but here it depends on what moral values and norms you have instilled in you. I was talking more about some kind of inner confidence and inner core, which it seems to me is stronger in children now because they don't seem as broken as we were. That's exactly what I was talking about. But yes, I understand what you're getting at. There are always two sides to every coin. So sometimes when you're super confident and focused only on yourself, it can turn into unhealthy egoism when you absolutely don't care about others or those around you. And that's not okay anymore. In general, it's great when there's balance in everything. What can I say?
We have an essay on our website written by a folklorist about how certain values represented in Ukrainian folklore, including our striving for the ideal, are reflected. And if we talk about idealism and the pursuit of the ideal in folklore, we see that there are always certain idealized figures. We'll talk more about folklore today, but for now, if we look at young people, we see in folklore that there are certain ideal images, and usually there is or was someone associated with them, a certain point of reference, that is to say we had heroes, brave warriors, valiant Cossacks, mighty Bogatires, and enchanting fairy tale heroes, again, all of them idealized. These are the heroes celebrated in songs, in other words, a whole set of truly idealized figures. And if a person truly looks up to these significant figures, and again, this whole what will people say thing is somewhat folkloric, perhaps, because that's precisely how people used to live in villages before, and they also deeply cared about what their neighbors would say, perhaps as well. And if, accordingly, our young youth, for example, grow up without these important folkloric societal reference points and so on, aren't we truly losing this certain ideal image that it would be good to strive for? Or perhaps this ideal is already outdated, and now we should be forming some new ideals, striving for new ideals, and in fact young people are doing this in their own way.
After all, we all grew up and we still had our own ideals, our own idols, our own role models, and they weren't always some kind of folkloric figures, right? That's why I think that young people today are simply choosing something different for themselves as the ideal they want to aspire to. But this is also something worth discussing, what these ideals are now, because a lot of them have been imposed on us or suggested to us. It's often presented through various marketing advertisements and numerous social networks, this seemingly perfect picture we frequently see on platforms like Instagram, in Instagram stories, even though in reality it's such a remarkably distant prism from the actual truth, because usually it doesn't match at all with what real life is genuinely and truly like. But what we see is a beautifully polished picture, and teenagers are looking at it.
Here, our goal is not so much to tell something or provide some guidelines, but first and foremost to ask questions, to bring things to the surface, to pose questions, and give our guests and our viewers and listeners in the comments the opportunity to express themselves, to draw attention to the fact that we have certain values, including idealism and the pursuit of ideals, which are inherent to us. They have been inherent to us since ancient times, and we can see this in folklore. Perhaps what we see in folklore is still relevant today, or maybe it is no longer relevant and we are now changing. We live in the modern world and we are searching for some new guidelines and values. And we actually really want, together with everyone, so to speak, to explore and discover what these values are, how these values are reflected in our lives today. Are they still truly relevant today? And if not, then what exactly will our new values be, the ones upon which our society and our identity are actually built?
I see. I truly and deeply want national dignity to be the main guiding principle for our youth, for all young people. I truly and sincerely hope that our beautiful language will be honored, that it will be heard more frequently in our bustling cities and quiet towns, in our small villages, indeed everywhere across our land. I sincerely wish that our heroes will be honored as well. I really truly want this profound sense of national dignity, despite the current prevailing trends in the world, to always remain deeply present within all of us. That is my wish. How can this be achieved? This probably needs to be instilled during the educational process, starting from school, and to learn more deeply about our rich ethnicity, our fascinating mythology, our comprehensive history, and to read more compelling literature. At least for me, since I am originally from Odessa, I'm an Odessite, I truly wasn't given this strong pro-Ukrainian foundation in my early childhood. And only now am I searching for it, even though still from early childhood, I definitely had a super pro-Ukrainian identity. But what exactly am I getting at with all of this? What I truly mean is that I deeply desire a very strong and unwavering foundation of love for our beloved country, for its rich and complex history, and for our shared mythology to be firmly instilled in the hearts and minds of our children from their earliest childhood years.
In fact, with our project and our activities at the Magical World, we are trying to lay a certain foundation and introduce people to mythology and our folklore. Dear esteemed viewers and dedicated listeners, on our vibrant YouTube channel, we have many captivating episodes about our cherished mythical heroes and fascinating legends. And this year, a brand new season of the Magical World of Ukrainian Folklore was officially released, where you can truly learn a great deal about our profoundly magical world of ancient myths, enduring legends, beautiful songs, wise proverbs, insightful sayings, and enchanting fairy tales, and much more. So I warmly invite you, after watching this informative video, to visit our official YouTube channel, check out another video, and subsequently watch it.
I have to confess something in secret. Only now am I really reading Kotsiubinsky's Shadows of Forgotten Ancestors properly. We had it in our school curriculum, but somehow it just passed me by completely. It was outside my awareness. Now, as I read it, by the way, there's a lot of mythology in there too. There are mavkas, chugaistas, these kinds of forest spirits. It's really interesting to get acquainted with this work when you're at a different stage of development, maybe even consciousness. That's precisely why I wish everyone, regardless of their age, to pick up and read even the school literature you were supposed to read in school, especially if you missed it. If it happened to pass you by, it's still something truly worth getting to know and understand at any stage or age in life.
And you can also get acquainted with the book Kiev, The Frost Horde. You can find a link to the website for this book in the description of this video. In this captivating book, you'll discover a truly fascinating and rich universe deeply inspired by ancient Ukrainian mythology. You, having worked in marketing for well over 10 years, undoubtedly know very well how current trends are meticulously formed, how these compelling ideals are carefully created that people are ultimately supposed to strive for in order to purchase products. And probably now, if we talk about our expansive virtual world of social networks, such as Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and so on, everything is meticulously built around showing you some absolutely ideal world that you should genuinely aspire to, so that later, well, you ultimately end up spending your hard-earned money to look the way they've shown you. How do you feel about that?
Absolutely, yes. How do I feel about it? Well, it's already become an inseparable part of our lives, and it didn't start just now. When did the first advertising campaigns appear? Many years ago. But yes, absolutely everything is truly built on the fundamental idea that if you purchase our specific product or valuable service, you will inevitably become much more perfect. This is a consumerist world. It's part of how big companies make money. That's what I can say. Here, you need to distinguish between what you really need and what you don't. I sometimes also fall victim to advertisements, those annoying pop-up ones that frequently appear on social media. And I start thinking, no, but I genuinely need this bag, or some little thing that had never even crossed my mind before that I might need. So yes, it works, unfortunately or fortunately, because there are so many wonderful things we have now that we absolutely didn't have as kids, but they really do genuinely make our daily lives much better. Like, I don't know, for example, a modern robot vacuum cleaner. I finally got one. This is absolutely the best purchase I could have ever made this entire year. So if this really sounds like an advertisement, then okay. But I feel like you were getting at something else. How can this affect us?
I was probably getting at the fundamental idea that in the relentless pursuit of this seemingly perfect image, meticulously created by large, influential companies, and I'm not just talking about specific products they're actively trying to sell you, but rather the entire, let's say, aspirational lifestyle that is constantly conveyed to us through various social media platforms when we observe millionaire bloggers or perhaps top-tier influencers who consistently appear absolutely perfect. They always have bright, beautiful, smiling photos. They're always on vacation somewhere, traveling. They have expensive cars, and so on and so on and so on. And this truly seems to look like some kind of an ideal, a perfect standard for the general public, let's say, for the very wide audience that diligently follows these popular bloggers. And they start striving for this as if it were a certain ideal. And here probably the ideals get a bit substituted, because you strive for some idealized image that is entirely material. You truly don't know what exactly stands behind this particular image. But, well, at least for the dedicated bloggers, it's in some significant way their primary activity, their actual job, and their main source of income. While for their eager audience, it's a certain appealing picture that they themselves genuinely start wanting to pursue. And here it seems that this is, well, not so much a relentless chase after purely material things, but rather a substitution of real values, probably.
Absolutely right. And I actually see a great danger in this, because it's precisely a substitution of values that's happening. Because in reality, no single material thing can truly give you a lasting feeling of genuine happiness. Even if you were to purchase, say, that brand new car you saw your absolute favorite blogger driving, it most certainly won't make you any better or any happier in the long run. Well, maybe it will for 5 minutes while you post a story or show it to someone else. People, unfortunately, are losing. I'm not saying everyone, but the clear trend is that they're gradually losing some of their inherent authenticity. And it truly seems to me that very soon there will be a significantly different demand, a strong demand for genuine reality, for true authenticity, for truly showing ourselves exactly as we truly are, without any makeup, without that absolutely perfect picture. I truly think that soon the focus will indeed shift exactly in this direction. And the trend will actually be, for example, to show up with unwashed hair, to be authentically real, and to show how you live your everyday life. Because all of us in reality are just people. No one truly has a perfect life, a perfect family, where no one ever argues and everything is always just so absolutely flawless. Like clockwork. I think that just simply doesn't exist. No one is truly perfect. That's why I believe that this demand in society will soon change, and we'll all want to see this authenticity.
Have there been situations in your life when you were striving for something, considered it an ideal, but then, once you achieved it, you realized it wasn't what you needed at all?
Oh, yes, I've definitely experienced that. I really wanted to work. There was this one company, it was a radio station I had listened to since childhood, and I always imagined that one day I would be a radio host there. And then, quite unexpectedly, the opportunity actually came up, and I decided to give it a try, but it quickly turned out that it was just this incredibly beautiful, shiny wrapper, and inside, it was absolutely nothing like what truly matched my deeply held values or my fundamental moral ideals. There was absolutely no genuine sense of harmony whatsoever. So, in fact, everything turned out to be completely different from what I had imagined.
How did you feel then?
Very bad. I felt really bad for 5 months. It was such a confusing feeling because this was supposed to be the dream job. But on the other hand, no, I felt extremely uncomfortable here. The team was bad, the working conditions were poor, and they treated you like a slave. And you're just like, what should I do? There was some kind of inner dissonance, which I ultimately decided to end by saying, sorry, but I don't want to continue like this because this doesn't correspond at all with my own personal ideas of how things truly should be.
Then, did you have to look for a new ideal, a new dream, a new aspiration?
There are always some dreams, but for me, these aspirations very often truly relate to relationships within the family, relationships with children, that is, things that are not material. Even when I meticulously write things down for myself, and I genuinely do this on occasion, I carefully formulate some sort of comprehensive plans for the entire year. But these detailed plans invariably include preserving the fundamental integrity of my relationships with my husband, with my children, spending more time with them, and sharing emotions. So I even write this down for myself. I genuinely want to remain a person who still truly values and actively incorporates these kinds of non-material, deeply meaningful things, so to speak, into my comprehensive plans for the entire year ahead. Because truly, if you don't include this for yourself, even if just a plan or a cherished dream or a significant goal or just something you would genuinely like, you might ultimately end up losing it. You will inevitably end up focusing solely on material things.
Let me kindly remind you that today in the studio of the Archetype of the Nation project, we are deeply conversing with Valeria Abdal about the profound pursuit of the ideal. Have there been significant moments in your life when your earnest pursuit of the ideal truly turned into undue pressure or internal pressure for you? Was it because of perfectionism or perhaps external pressure?
External, most likely not. For me, my best critic has always been myself. So most likely it's internal pressure. Even after I've already completed something, I constantly think to myself, no, this could have been done quite differently. I could have expressed this another way or acted in a different manner here. This is something that's constantly present for me. It's truly permanent, and I still experience it to this very day. This is exactly what I was talking about at the beginning, this sort of inner perfectionism that gets in the way.
Has there ever been a time when you had to give up your ideals?
Give up on ideals altogether? Or give up on
Just one ideal?
I would definitely say yes. For example, the ideal of family, just like I already mentioned, not everything can be perfect. You can't have a perfectly spotless apartment and happy kids at the same time. I mean, if I spend all day cleaning the apartment from morning till night, then obviously the kids will be neglected or unfed, or I just won't be able to give them or my husband enough attention. That's why sometimes you need to let go of some of your ideals, or just understand that we're all human, and yes, sometimes there might be an argument. Or a child might not do a perfect homework assignment or get a perfect grade, but we're all human. And here, it's not that I'm abandoning my core ideals, I just allow myself to truly and fully understand that no one is perfect, that nothing is perfect. And that today I or my husband or my child might be in a bad mood, but tomorrow it will be better. But you need to pay attention to this. and sometimes you need to make compromises, for example. Because someone is promoting the idea that perfect relationships are those where you never argue, that you should never compromise. If you compromise, it means you're going against yourself. On the contrary, I don't think that way. I believe that some healthy compromise in a family, in long-term relationships, is necessary. Yes, maybe it's not really perfect by some standards, but that's just actually the way it indeed is.
It says on your Instagram that you are a wedding ceremony host.
Yes, and it's not just written there. I've been a wedding ceremony host for more than 12 or 13 years. It's truly my cherished hobby, which genuinely helps me to gain a certain significant energy and a great deal of inspiration, because when you meticulously create this truly unforgettable and special moment for two people, for their cherished guests, their beloved loved ones, and their entire family they've thoughtfully invited, it's something that definitely always gives you profound inspiration.
A wedding during wartime. Some might say it's an escape from reality, a sign of carelessness. Others, on the contrary, will say it's a display of strength, hope, and love. Where do you stand on this scale?
I'm definitely for the second option. I deeply and profoundly believe that this is an enduring sign of hope, a very resilient and unwavering one, because love must always live and thrive, flourishing against all odds. Love should exist and persist even in the most challenging and difficult times of war. And as someone who hosts weddings and sees many dedicated servicemen whose beautiful weddings I also host, well, isn't it truly wonderful that they can take a short leave, come to Odessa to have a wedding, or to any other charming city? It doesn't really matter. It's truly wonderful when people still find the precious time and place for enduring love. That's why I truly believe it's a significant sign of enduring hope for something better and unwavering faith in the future.
In fact, it turns out that this profound attempt to live on in spite of death is also, in a significant way, an indicator of striving for an ideal, perhaps.
Among many other things, but ultimately, love is truly what heals. Love is what genuinely gives us hope and unwavering faith. How could we do without it? We can't stop our feelings. We can't stop love if it exists and say, no, let's put it on pause until the war is over. That's not possible either. That's why I support holding such events. Maybe sometimes there are significant questions in society about precisely how weddings are typically held and how much they truly cost. I truly don't know how to adequately put it. Just how lavishly people celebrate them during this wartime period, that's a completely separate issue.
Yes, because you can go register your marriage, you can
even do it with your family and your closest friends, but without all that truly ostentatious luxury. And I completely understand why this deeply triggers many people, especially when every single day we're raising much needed money for some essential night vision device or a crucial vehicle for the military, and there are simply not enough funds available. And here, people are throwing these incredibly, insanely expensive weddings. Hundreds of thousands of hryvnias or perhaps even dollars, I truly don't know. That's why, yes, emotions are running very, very high in society right now, and people are incredibly sensitive to absolutely everything, so I genuinely don't know how to effectively avoid this situation. Maybe it's simply not worth broadcasting such excessive displays of luxury, really, especially if we're living in a country that is currently at war. Yes, I can certainly agree with that point, but so it's definitely not worth hiding genuine feelings and true love.
But here, I guess, we're really talking about weddings, not just the simple fact of getting married, but specifically about weddings as truly lavish celebrations, complete with elaborate parties and a significant amount of money spent on them. And going back to the original idea of what people will say during wartime, probably those who organize such weddings aren't really concerned about what people will say. They have their own values, ideals, and vision. Someone might ask, aren't they ashamed to throw such a grand wedding, or a wedding of a certain scale, where everything is so beautiful, with lots of guests, while at the same time, other people nearby are losing what is most precious to them, and we are really collecting money for everything that's lacking, while others are out there celebrating weddings. Here, the issue is also about the dissonance between the ideals of different people.
Yes, there definitely is a certain dissonance, and now, during the time of the full-scale invasion and war, it feels even more pronounced, even sharper. I agree with that. I'm in favor of, even if you have the opportunity, you have the money, and you really want to do something on a large scale, I'm in favor of simply not making it so public, so incredibly showy, just because it can really profoundly affect the feelings of other people right now. Although people will say, so when are we supposed to live then? You see, there are always two sides to this coin. And when then are we supposed to fully enjoy the fact that we have this opportunity and want to do it? So it's complicated. There has to be balance in everything. Do it, but just don't broadcast it so much, in my opinion. By the way, for me, all the weddings I host, maybe it's just the specific ones I get to work with, or perhaps like truly attracts like, but the couples I work with are truly genuine and absolutely wonderful individuals. And I don't have that kind of excessiveness where you feel you have to do things just to show off to everyone. And for me, it's mostly couples and newlyweds who truly do it for themselves and their closest, most cherished loved ones, and I really like that a lot.
If we look at the fundamental question of weddings completely and utterly cynically, even in times of peace, isn't this elaborate and grand ceremony just a kind of elaborate game of pretending to have a truly perfect life?
A game of pretending to have a perfect life?
I mean, just for a show?
For a show, of course that happens. Because, well, at least people want to believe that it's that one special day. You truly only get married just once in your life. That's why you want to make it perfect. As if there won't be another chance like this. So let's make perfect photos today, a perfect celebration, everything perfect. So in principle, that's justified to some extent. But you need to do it not for someone else, but for yourself. I think that's the only advice you really, really, really need to follow. Do it for yourself, not just for the sake of appearances.
A remark about folklore and traditions in the context of weddings. If we talk about a traditional Ukrainian wedding, it took place in several stages. It all started with the initial engagement, and the entire process subsequently lasted for several weeks, or even considerably longer. Usually, these significant weddings traditionally took place in the autumn season, specifically after the harvest had been completely gathered, at a time when there was plenty of food to eat and, quite accordingly, something truly special to celebrate. But the whole elaborate process, from the initial engagement to the actual wedding ceremony itself, was actually a very, very involved and lengthy affair. Structured process, so to speak, with certain rituals. And this was connected to the fact that two families, possibly hostile to each other if we talk about ancient times, meaning they could be completely unfamiliar families from different villages, who theoretically might even have been enemies. And so, when people from these two families came together and, well, actually fell in love and wanted to start a family, all these rituals were aimed not so much at reconciling them, but rather at bringing these two families together so that they could come to an agreement with each other. That is to say, in actual fact, it was not so much an act of demonstrating profound love between two specific individuals, but rather an essential act of uniting two distinctly different families. These families had to genuinely get to know each other, come to a mutual agreement, and ultimately begin to peacefully coexist together. So we know that a traditional Ukrainian wedding is truly a large-scale event. It can last 3 days or even a week, with many relatives invited, and the whole village comes to celebrate. And in fact, historically speaking, this was indeed a very well-defined, so to speak, process. It was primarily driven by a certain inherent necessity, so that everyone involved could effectively communicate with each other. Nowadays, large-scale, elaborate weddings no longer truly have this archaic traditional purpose of introducing everyone and, so to speak, effectively helping them start to coexist and bond together like brothers. Now that's no longer the actual case, so the overall scale of weddings today is, once again, just about showing off an impressive image.
Yes, to show off a certain perhaps financial status, that we can truly afford this actually. Or maybe people just want to make this day perfect, because there won't be another day like it. Yes, it definitely depends. It truly depends on, as they say, so it can be very different. But I am definitely in favor of not showing off excess right now. At this particular moment, I think it's not the right time for that matter.
Do you think there are really a lot of people now for whom striving for perfection is just a very normal way of their daily life?
It's worth saying. I haven't looked at the statistics. If for them the ideal is those beautiful, aesthetically pleasing pictures from Instagram, then probably there are still a great many such people. If for them the ideal is diligently searching for inner qualities, then that is also a valid perspective. Then, unfortunately, I meet fewer such people these days.
The Archetype of the Nation is created with the support of the Ukrainian Cultural Foundation and is released in various formats. So choose the one you like, listen, watch, read our episodes, and also share your thoughts in the comments, because in this project, every opinion matters. And of course, subscribe to our channels and pages so you don't miss anything interesting. All the links are in the description for this episode. Can we even truly say that there is a certain, quite special Ukrainian idealism, or is this Ukrainian striving for the ideal something deeply genetic, or perhaps something that, once again, our beloved parents or older relatives have somehow profoundly taught us and instilled within us? Is there something in our idealism that perhaps sets us apart?
I definitely think that what sets us apart is this national dignity that I already mentioned. I truly think that this is definitely something quite profound that we have within us. It is indeed built up over many generations, and it has been deeply initiated in us. It profoundly exists within us. We just need to further strengthen it in certain meaningful ways and develop it even more fully within ourselves. But I genuinely think that, historically speaking, this inherent national dignity is definitely a distinguishing and significant feature that truly sets us apart from other peoples and nations.
Is there a danger in a fanatical pursuit of the ideal?
Yes, of course. I think the answer here is quite obvious. It's a very clear and obvious answer. Of course, anything that is truly fanatical is inherently excessive. It's already far beyond any kind of reasonable balance. That's precisely why a fanatical pursuit of the ideal will inevitably give you a constant feeling of deep dissatisfaction.
How do you know when it's time to stop?
When you truly feel that it's actively destroying your entire life, and perhaps even the lives of those closest around you. When your beloved children or your dear husband genuinely don't see you, or your immediate environment is completely falling apart. This delicate ecosystem of your cherished family, when you are profoundly suffering because of it, then you most definitely need to stop. Because first of all, that's how you can burn out, if we're talking about work or really anything at all. It's very easy to burn out. And so if you feel that you're burning out, if you feel that you wake up in the morning and already have no energy left, then those are definitely the first warning signs that you need to stop.
We talked about burnout with another guest of ours, Andrei Kozenchuk. It was a very interesting conversation. Check it out. There's a lot of useful information there about what to do if you feel burned out and how to avoid burning out in general. And is it even possible?
By the way, I'm sure it definitely is possible. You just need to truly rely on your own inner feelings, always remember to carefully take good care of yourself, and consistently pay close attention to precisely how you genuinely feel as a direct result. If you truly don't feel any genuine satisfaction from the entire process, if you profoundly feel like you have absolutely no energy left whatsoever, then that is already not a good sign at all.
Besides being a wedding ceremony host, you now truly dedicate most of your valuable time to the Children of Heroes Foundation, which is a very important cause. Tell us, how did you get involved in volunteering and charity work in the first place?
I actually devote all of my time, at least my dedicated working hours, to this endeavor now. This is truly my full-time occupation, my complete commitment. I might even call it my personal mission. It's not just a job, it is a profound mission. How did it all happen? It happened on February 24th, when life was split into before and after. Because before that, I was doing something completely different. I was in marketing, and then I decided to start my own YouTube channel. And there too, I wanted to do everything perfectly, coming back to our topic. But then the full-scale invasion tragically happened, which profoundly forced me to completely reconsider all the deeply held ideals I had cherished before, all my personal aspirations and future goals. And to realize that what you were doing before doesn't make any sense at all. I also tried to manage my social media to show, like, here's my new episode on YouTube, and today I have to post, I remember that was a task from the SMM manager, today I have to post 10 stories. And I don't really like doing that, but it had to be done, to show people something so that they would follow you. That's how the algorithms used to work. When all this happened, you suddenly realize that all of it is actually so meaningless and senseless, and that now other people need your help. This was right at the very beginning of the full-scale invasion, when in March we officially started a foundation and decided to actively help, in my considered opinion, the most vulnerable group in society, young children. Because children can't stand up for themselves, because children can't go out and earn money, because children can't take care of themselves. And these are not just children, but children who have lost one or both parents. That is, these are children who are also dealing with the deep psychological trauma of loss. So, well, all my former past ideals were somehow completely shattered in a single day, when I truly realized that none of it made sense anymore, and I built new meanings for myself.
Now, as you actively help children and diligently work with them at the foundation, how do you truly find a delicate balance between wanting to do absolutely everything perfectly for those children you currently have, and the pressing need to reach as many children as humanly possible? How do you find the balance between these two?
I guess I actually understand that things can never truly be perfect here. There is no real absolute marker of perfection here. How can you measure whether you helped perfectly or not? Here, it's your own powerful inner drive, either to truly do it or simply not to do it at all. Right now, I have the feeling that I want to help and keep doing it. If I could scale up even more, that would be wonderful. At the same time, I understand that it's probably impossible to reach everyone. But even if you extend your help to just one single individual, you might have already profoundly changed that person's entire fate and future. Just one solitary person can make all the difference. Yes, it's a small drop in the ocean, but by creating these drops, if more people make these very drops in the ocean, then we can create our own large sea.
And did you, during your extensive work at the foundation or when you initially founded it, set any specific overarching goals for yourself, any ideal ultimate result, or a clear vision of the foundation's perfect and successful outcome?
A vision of the ideal result. It's hard to talk about the results now because at the beginning of the war, we didn't realize we would have so many people under our care. In the first months, it seemed like just a little longer and it would all be over. We thought there would be a certain number of people under our care, but not 14,000 children. Today we have 14,000 people under our care who have lost one or both parents. Most of them are children of military personnel, but there are also children of civilians. In the first year, we couldn't even imagine such a number. If someone had told me, I would have said it's impossible. That just can't be. Our primary and most important task was to build a robust system and a clear structure for all our work so that everything would be perfectly organized and completely transparent. Because our main goal was precisely to organize our work in such a way that we would have an absolutely transparent and unimpeachable reputation which would genuinely give us significant opportunities. To work with large and substantial funds, various foundations, attract generous donors, and so on. And what can you do for that? You should just conduct all of your work as transparently as possible. That's why, by the way, we definitely have a certain level of a healthy perfectionism, because we actually have a lot of truly specialized programs that we work in. Each child registered in our foundation receives assistance and has their own profile in the CRM system, which is updated almost every week. Previously, we updated it every week. Now we do it once every 2 weeks, entering new data there. So we have successfully built a robust system that now allows us to effectively scale up. But to honestly say that we truly anticipated there would be this many children, no, we absolutely did not anticipate that at all. I also want to say that we have always aimed and continue to aim for our mission to be a long-term endeavor, and this has been clearly stated since the very first day of our important work. We want to help children who have come to our foundation not just by providing them with some one-time humanitarian aid and simply saying, "Here, we are helping." No, we want this support to be comprehensive and long-term up until the child turns 18. In other words, a child stops being a beneficiary of the foundation only when they turn 19. So, even during the significant period from 18 to 19 years old, we continue to provide essential assistance. So it doesn't matter if a child is just 1 year old and becomes our valued beneficiary, they will receive comprehensive support from our foundation until they ultimately reach full adulthood. This is the kind of long-term mission we have set for ourselves. We stick to it and really hope that everything will work out. To achieve this, a significant amount of work needs to be done, and in many respects it all comes down to money, funding, and finding generous donors. That's precisely why we focus on this as well.
What do you truly feel when this strong desire to do your absolute best to achieve a certain desired result comes up against the harsh, undeniable limitations of reality when it actually collides with the stark reality?
Oh, I truly feel kind of guilty about this situation. Yes, for example, I clearly see a certain significant need that a particular family has within our foundation, but unfortunately, we simply cannot help them in that specific area, for instance, at this moment. And I just feel guilty about it. Or I will really start looking for ways to do it differently, to be honest, you know?
Are there any specific stories, either about a particular child or different children whom the foundation has helped, when you realized that this idealism, this striving for the ideal, actually works?
Actually, we have a lot of such stories. It's just that with this particular question, I truly want to understand what an ideal story genuinely means. But actually, for me, an ideal story is when I see a child who is smiling, a child who has suffered a significant loss, who has gone through so very much, a lot of psychological pressure and is constantly experiencing a sense of loss, but at the same time understands that their cherished dream is truly coming true, yes, and I fully realize that it's thanks to us, thanks to the foundation, because we genuinely make children's dreams come true. Many of our beneficiaries have non-material dreams, for example, to meet a beloved celebrity or their admired idol, and we carefully organize such special meetings. We already have have a significant joint project with the TV channel 1+1, for example, where we give our beneficiaries the wonderful opportunity to meet their idols. And we've had all sorts of people there already, Monatik, Derafiva, singers, football players. And at that moment, when you see that it's a surprise for the child, and we always organize it so that it's a complete surprise and totally unexpected for the child. With Olga Harlan, I remember there was a girl who also does fencing and really wanted to meet her, so we made it happen. And when you truly see those innocent eyes that simply cannot believe what has just happened, you profoundly realize that maybe it's not a perfectly crafted story, but what could possibly be more absolutely perfect than simply a genuinely happy child? What could be more wonderfully amazing than a child who is joyfully smiling? What could be truly better than a precious child whose dreams have come true? That's just wonderful. Maybe these can also be called perfect stories. And it's precisely in these moments that I realize we're doing everything right. Or when we help children, for example, in the field of education, and they get into the universities, the very universities they aspire to enter. Because, in fact, our assistance is very comprehensive. We provide not only humanitarian aid, not only psychological support, because we, 30 psychologists, work constantly at the foundation and provide assistance. Not only medical, not only legal help, but we also assist with the socialization of children. We organize camps, which are also really great. I have attended such camps myself. And you can simply see happy, joyful children spending their precious time the way children truly should, despite the ongoing war. And we also achieve many significant results and accomplishments in the educational field, so that our beneficiaries have the wonderful opportunity to receive the education they truly want and deserve. So, when you personally see that a child genuinely wanted to get into a certain university and you actively helped with that, or now, for example, we are working very closely and diligently with a comprehensive program for studying abroad for children who really want it, well, that's just absolutely awesome. That's probably the ideal scenario, at least in that specific moment when you deeply feel that you've positively influenced the fate of a child or a young teenager. It's truly incredible.
Probably this too, really, if we are talking about ideals, then to help a child who, without your invaluable assistance, you could truly say, might have tragically lost their precious childhood, and you, first and foremost, give them their childhood back, you genuinely return their joy. You provide them with those wonderful opportunities, and this smiling, truly happy child is that ideal and perfect image worth striving for and achieving.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that.
And what gives you the most inspiration in your work at the foundation? I think that I know the answer.
Yes, that's exactly what gives me some kind of inexhaustible energy and inspiration to keep doing this, because in reality it's exhausting work. And when you talk to families who have suffered, when you hear their stories, I'm not a psychologist, I don't have a background in psychology, but when people trust you enough to talk for an hour and a half, like for example a mother of such a child, sharing with you the most intimate moments of her life and crying as she does so. On the one hand, it's emotionally quite difficult, but on the other hand, you truly realize that right now, for this particular person, you have become a vital support, and for this entire family, you have become a crucial support. And from this profound feeling, not so much of personal importance to others, but rather of truly being a steadfast support for other people, you genuinely start to feel somehow much stronger yourself, that you are indeed a reliable support. Someone they can rely on. And from that, you grow these inner wings.
What values or ideals would you really like to pass on to the children through the work of the foundation, through your interaction with them?
Again, it's our Ukrainian dignity. It is our the feeling that regardless of all of the circumstances that have arisen in their life, this child truly deserves the very best for them. the best possible education, the best possible conditions, that they simply deserve to be happy in this world.
In our fairy tales, there are many images of truly ideal heroes and heroines. Who, in your opinion, is the very ideal hero for Ukrainians right now, at this moment, specifically a modern, perhaps a truly ideal hero?
I think that for many Ukrainians right now, our brave defenders are the ideal heroes and heroines indeed. I think this can also be divided into certain periods or terms. At the beginning of the war, our hero, well, I can't speak for everyone, and maybe people will criticize me for this, but for a certain period at the start of the war, it was Zelensky, who didn't surrender, didn't flee, stayed in the country. There were great hopes placed on him, and for many, he was a hero. Then, for a certain period, Zaluzhny was the hero. After that, it was some individual servicemen. Now they are always permanently our heroes. But it seems to me that after the full-scale invasion began, for people, and for me personally, our heroes were no longer celebrities or famous personalities, but truly our brave defenders who protect the sacred borders of our beloved country, our inherent dignity, and our precious independence every single day. I truly admire those remarkable people who are genuinely ready to give their precious lives every single day for the betterment of our collective future. I deeply admire the incredibly brave women who selflessly serve on the front lines and who are absolutely not afraid of any challenges. I also highly admire the dedicated military medics. Furthermore, I greatly admire the compassionate volunteers who, even while being in significant danger themselves, for example, are actively involved in evacuating vulnerable people from dangerous frontline areas. I truly appreciate and find it inspiring, that now, despite such difficult and challenging times for our country, we have such worthy and exemplary role models, as it genuinely seems to me, and admirable idols.
Actually, we too can vividly recall the legendary figure of the Ghost of Kiev, whose heroic actions and remarkable feats, when performed by real warriors, very swiftly became legend, essentially transcending mere reality and turning into an enduring myth. In the very same way, perhaps, as it happened thousands of years ago, when certain real deeds indeed became stories that have reached us, or rather in the form of fairy tales or myths. And here we see such a modern process, in fact, of myth-making, which truly took place when real actions became a legend, and this legend quickly spread both in Ukraine and even abroad, because a manga about the legendary ghosts of Kiev was created in Japan, since the Japanese also very much they are characterized by the fact that they understand trends not only in technology but in general in what is happening in the world. And this manga, back in 2022, appeared very quickly after the legend of the Ghosts of Kiev emerged. And this is also a very significant and truly fascinating indicator of how a real historical story becomes deeply ingrained as an integral part of the folklore and continues to profoundly shape this national mythology. I also want to talk with you about such a thing as our Ukrainian idealism in the context of the contemporary global world. Maybe it's a somewhat unusual, perhaps even a little bit strange question. I'll fully explain it now. It seems to me that we always create certain expectations for ourselves, expectations that we constantly strive for and endeavor to achieve. We believe that supposedly the whole world should, so to speak, meet our expectations as well. But in the real world, there is usually a somewhat more pragmatic attitude, especially in the realm of big politics, but not only there. That is to say, we may frequently encounter the undeniable fact that our deeply held ideals in the complex real world might not always find a certain positive response. So, what do you truly think? How exactly should we proceed? How exactly should Ukrainians, in the broader context of our ongoing development and significant growth as a proud nation, truly act and consistently behave with these cherished ideals of ours, with our persistent striving for the ultimate ideal that we meticulously create for ourselves, so that we absolutely don't become disillusioned in the challenging process when directly faced with the often harsh reality that profoundly surrounds us?
First of all, in order not to be disappointed, you shouldn't become enchanted in the first place. And what I truly mean is, you absolutely shouldn't set overly high expectations for someone else. In my honest opinion, you should first and foremost rely on yourself and always ask yourself, what exactly have I done? Because I see a lot of people who are constantly complaining about the government, about someone else, about the world, saying that someone should help us. But sometimes we can't even help ourselves. We can't create better conditions for ourselves to improve, I don't know, something in your own yard, to help someone, to screw in a light bulb in your building's entrance, for example. But we are always expecting something from someone else. I believe that first and foremost we need to set a certain standard for ourselves and ask ourselves, what have I done for myself, for those around me, for my country? If you haven't done anything, then why should you truly expect someone from abroad to solve your own specific problems? So perhaps this will sound very self-critical, but I truly think we absolutely need to be this way, and only then will we indeed grow and become better. Only when we ourselves make a conscious and dedicated effort to change something meaningful around us.
That idealism should primarily lie in the diligent pursuit of perfectionism towards oneself, not in merely expecting some ideal situation to spontaneously arise, or some perfect attitude from those around you.
Yes, it is expectations that can constantly bring us disappointment. I came to this realization when, at some point, we all are waiting and have been waiting for the end of the full-scale invasion. At some point, I realized that it becomes simply destructive for me to constantly be in this state of waiting and not understanding why someone isn't doing something. I realized that I need to focus on myself, on my family, on the work that I do. Maybe in the grand scheme of the universe, it's just a drop in the ocean, but at the very least, I can improve my own life, the lives of my children, and God willing, someone else whom we help through the foundation. And that's truly not so little after all, when you consider the profound impact, because even a single fate, a solitary individual's journey, a single precious life that you have the opportunity to save or profoundly help, that in itself is already a monumental achievement and certainly not so insignificant or small. Now, I suggest that we play our traditional game called the Folklore chest. Wow, let's do it!
Today, in our folklore chest, we have folklore works that are connected with idealism, ideal heroes, and the pursuit of the ideal. But what will the game be about? Slides will be shown on the screen. One is real, meaning it's the title of an actual work, like a fairy tale, a song, or a duma. Or there's another version, which is not real. It is also shown on the slide, so you need to choose which of the two versions, which of the two titles actually exists.
Okay, just a heads up, I'm not very strong in folklore, but let's see, maybe this will be more of a game of intuition.
Alright, then let's begin. First slide. Koti Horoshko and Koti Zarniatko.
No, this one's obvious. Koti Horoshko.
Pretty simple question. Koti Horoshko is actually our Ukrainian ideal hero and a very, very famous fairy tale. Second one. The Duma about Cossack Holota or the Duma about Cossack Ryabko?
The Duma, a traditional epic poem about the Cossack Holota.
Cossack Holota, yes, that's correct. And he is a truly Ukrainian, a fearless and brave warrior who has no material riches but profoundly possesses great honor and unwavering courage. That's our Cossack Holota. Further. The sun rises over Siberia or the dawn shines over the Dnieper?
And Siberia in this case is...
Siberia.
Siberia. Well, that's why I definitely choose the Dnipro. I like the Dnieper better, so I choose the star shining over the Dnieper.
Unfortunately, that's the wrong answer, because the correct answer is the sun rises over Siberia. And the hero of this song is Ustim Karmalyuk. Let's move on. Another Duma. Is it the Duma about Ivan Bohun or the Duma about Oles Solomaka?
Well, at least I've certainly heard about Ivan Bohun.
Because Ivan Bohun is a well-known historical figure.
Yes, yes.
And the last question, which might also be considered quite simple, the legend of Dovbush or the legend of Kulish?
The legend of Dovbush.
Yes, Dovbush is again our idealized, truly legendary warrior who bravely led the Oprishki, and in fact there are a great many, quite a lot of fascinating legends about him as well. He is indeed such a very legendary figure in western Ukraine.
I remember there are the Dovbush rocks in Yaremche.
And not only in Yaremche, there are several of them in the Carpathians. After our engaging folklore game, let's talk a bit more about the fascinating world of folklore. And I have a pertinent question for you, actually. What do you truly think? How do you genuinely feel about it? How would you explain to young children why, in our traditional Ukrainian fairy tales, the hero always has to go through significant trials before reaching their ultimate goal? Actually, this happens not only in Ukrainian fairy tales, but it's a very typical structure and a common story for many heroic or magical tales in general. But if we talk specifically about our Ukrainian fairy tales, like the well-known story of Koti Horoshko, he had to embark on a long journey. First, to bravely rescue his sister, then he was unexpectedly betrayed, and once again he diligently tried to get out of every challenging situation. How would you explain to children why the heroes of our fairy tales have to go through such trials before ultimately reaching their cherished goal?
I would probably say that it's kind of a sketch, basically, of real life. Because in real life, too, in order to achieve something, you have to go through, well, maybe not exactly trials, but it's a process and it's a journey. And I, for example, teach my son the same thing, that not everything happens at the snap of your fingers, that if you want to achieve something, you sometimes have to understand that there may be setbacks, but you have to get up and keep going if that's your goal and your aim. Then you shouldn't pay attention to those setbacks. On the contrary, you should look even harder within yourself for strength and inspiration to keep moving forward. That's why I think it's a kind of reference.
A learning model.
A valuable learning model, yes, that not everything in life is always so easy. Well, unfortunately, I truly don't want to sound like, some old lady saying, oh, life is just one big continuous test, but that's often how it really, truly is.
Another compelling example from folklore is sacrifice, when the hero's readiness to sacrifice himself is often celebrated, and how he is truly ready to give his very life for the sake of achieving some significant goal or cherished ideal. In your considered opinion, is that fundamentally good or inherently bad?
Probably, again, because this is truly translated from our very real Ukrainian life and its rich history, because in a profound way, it has always been precisely like this. We have consistently had to sacrifice our precious lives for our cherished freedom, for the sacred borders of our beloved country, for the vital preservation of our national and unique identity.
Speaking of traditional folklore narratives, in your considered opinion, is it still truly relevant today to effectively teach young children certain moral ideals and valuable lessons through these enduring folklore stories, or are they perhaps more intensely focused on modern images and primarily oriented towards contemporary popular culture?
Children today are definitely more oriented towards modern ideals, at the modern captivating images they see every single day on their various electronic gadgets, but at the very same time, we absolutely shouldn't ever forget our true origins, our deep roots, our rich history, and those wonderful folkloric images that, at the very least, we truly need to know and understand.
We invite you to share your valuable impressions of today's conversation in the comments section. Please share your insightful thoughts on Ukrainian idealism, on the profound Ukrainian pursuit of the ideal. Do we still genuinely have these ideals today? And are they significantly different from the idealism or the grand vision of an ideal world or ideal heroes that are so richly represented in traditional folklore? Please share your thoughts in the comments, it's very important. To wrap up, a blitz interview. 7 short questions and 7 short or not so short answers. What particular trait do you truly value most in other people, in your opinion?
Kindness, compassion, honesty. Not just one, you see, I named 3.
Which do you consider the worst?
Aggression, anger, envy. These, in my opinion, are very destructive traits.
What inspires you?
My work at the foundation really inspires me. My children inspire me. Their genuine emotions over simple, everyday things, the way they truly react to something I haven't reacted to like that in a very long time. It gives me inspiration and the understanding that, in fact, so much happiness is right next to you and surrounds you, that you can simply rejoice in very, very simple things.
What scares you?
Uncertainty.
What helped you hold on during difficult moments in life?
My family.
The main goal or mission of your life?
First of all, it's so that each and every one of my children grows up happy, healthy, very well educated, and with the sense that they can truly handle anything, that they are really independent, and at the same time feel the support of their families, and my support, of course. I always want to maintain a very warm and friendly relationship with them, even when they are adults. I would really like that. That's regarding my children. And of course, I want to talk about the children of the foundation. I don't know precisely how I can specifically influence every single individual, but I would genuinely and truly like them to feel happy and content no matter what circumstances they face, and also to be able to fully develop their own unique potential and inherent talents. And in the future, I hope they become the very best and most exemplary representatives of Ukrainian society.
If you had to choose 3 words that characterize the people of Ukraine, what exactly would those words be?
Freedom, dignity, and their resilience indeed. Definitely, truly, very much so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we have the artifact segment, where we ask our guests to leave something as a memento of themselves. And today in our studio we have Valeria Abdal, co-founder of the Children of Heroes Foundation, and probably today you brought us something related to the foundation.
Yes, of course. These are socks, but not just any socks. These are our foundation's signature socks, even branded here with our logo. By the way, I have the same logo hanging here as well. So why aren't they just ordinary socks? Because they're designed, they're created based on drawings by the children from our foundation. What exactly do I want to say? They're very bright and vibrant, but actually we have another distinct pair of socks with a slightly different design. They all powerfully reflect how young children, in their own unique way, draw the war. They draw precisely what surrounds them, what they clearly see. And even though everything here is very bright, there's still a military tank. It's such a vivid depiction, although actually quite cheerful, cheerful and colorful. But I would like to wish that our children would draw only peace. So I truly want to leave these very special socks right here in this studio space, and sincerely wish that the next time I am in this very same studio, there will be something wonderfully positive drawn on these socks, something truly about peace, about cherished dreams, and about genuine kindness. I really want that.
I really want that too. I truly think that everyone, our viewers, our listeners, genuinely wants that too, and in fact, all Ukrainians certainly do. So thank you very much for this wonderful gift. We will carefully keep it for our museum. Thank you for today's meeting. It was truly a great pleasure to talk to you on the air of Archetype of the Nation. And I sincerely wish you the greatest and most perfect results possible, as well as many remarkable achievements in the important work of your foundation.
Let's just agree on good results, because when you strive for perfection, you might end up not getting something as a result, either satisfaction or the result you were aiming for. That's why I still wish for everyone to focus on the good. Let's do things well, but let's do them. I want to thank you for inviting me to take part in this podcast today. This was a very unconventional podcast, really, an unconventional topic, interesting questions, and I wish you inspiration and energy to keep developing the subject you're working on. It's awesome.
Thank you. Friends, today in our studio we had the co-founder of the Children of Heroes Charity Foundation, Valeria Abdal. Write in the comments what interesting things you learned for yourself. Do you think that striving for perfection is one of the important values inherent to the Ukrainian people? Let me remind you that you can watch episodes of the Archetype of the Nation project on YouTube, listen on your favorite podcast platforms, and read on the website magicworld.com.ua. In particular, there you will find popular science essays prepared by folklorist Marina Demediuk, as well as recordings of folk works performed by well-known actors. Thank you for your attention, and goodbye.